Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissick and Dana Gentry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissick.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Hey, Dana, how are you? I know you're supposed to be on vacation, but do you even know how to do a vacation?
No, not really, because honestly, today I was probably on the phone 90% of the day.
So much for vacation.
I know. It's okay. If I can just get a couple of days in, then I'll be good.
Well, and if you could just say mentally, I feel okay if I do personal stuff during all this.
Yes, that's what I need to do. It's almost like I told you earlier. I just needed like a minute to just get all my personal stuff knocked out, and then I'll be good to go. But I was thinking about it. I know you're the same way. I've literally not stopped since this whole entire year, because if we look at January was crazy. Then February we were in Dallas for the convention, and it was just one thing after another. And then I feel like we kicked it in even higher gear when we all got quarantined. So it's been a crazy first half of the year, really.
Yeah, and it feels like it's gone fast, and then there were moments that felt so slow, like time had stopped. I think we're going to look back and wonder where the heck this year go.
I know. I think so too. I totally agree. Oh, I meant to send you, I'm going to send you this as soon as we get finished. I watched the Best Church service yesterday, and he talked about this year. It's actually a guy from Texas, Robert Madu. Have you ever followed him?
Never.
Okay, he's really going to send it to you. But I heard him at Catalyst one time, but he guest preached at Craig Rochelle's church this weekend. And I normally watch Craig every Sunday morning. And so I watched him and saw this guest guy, Robert, on there. And he was saying, he laughed. He said, I regret to inform you that the year 2020 is only halfway over. And he was just talking about how we've had to learn the art of adaptability. And he had the best message on how we've had to learn to adapt. I don't know. It was really good. You'll love it. I got to send it to you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to listen to that. And I'm loving my new Jen Wilkins Bible study that is actually called Flower Mound Women's something or other, but it is so good. It's pretty, the podcasts are pretty long each time, but I kind of sometimes half them because I don't have enough time in the mornings.
Yeah.
But they're really, really good. So I'm loving that too.
I downloaded hers, but I haven't started it yet. And that's one of the things I wanted to do this week is get like real organized with my podcast list and my books and all that stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of find some new life hack ones or something. I love ones where you learn of a cool idea, or like here's an example. I don't look on Twitter that much, but occasionally something will kind of catch my attention. So this girl had her 10 favorite products on Twitter. I think I probably ordered about 8 out of the 10. But, or someone that learns, how to do a better habit, or a time, something that saves you time. I don't know what all those are called. I don't know if they're called biohacks, but any kind of health biohack or time biohack, I love that kind of stuff. So I've kind of been looking around for a new podcast. So if you know of one, or if anybody in our audience knows of ones, be sure and reach out and let me know what it is. I'd love to add some new and different podcasts. I'm finding myself getting a little bit bored with some of the ones I've been listening to, or maybe maybe I feel like I've kind of got saturated with that kind of information. Like I was listening to intermittent fasting ones like crazy, but I kind of feel like I've read so many books now, and I've listened to so many podcasts that there's nothing new, no new information. And so I like learning and growing. I don't feel like I can do that, but I'll still kind of tap into them every once in a while.
Yeah.
So, if you find any good ones, let me know.
Yeah, I will. I'll have to look too, but it's probably because the intermittent fasting thing, you pretty much mastered that. So now you're ready to do something else.
Yeah. One of them I really like is called Happier by Gretchen Rubin. That one's kind of good. She's a habit kind of hacker. In other words, she works on happiness habits, which is kind of cool.
I love
that. So that one's I've been listening to that one a little bit more. It's her and her sister. And her sister has one that says Happier in Hollywood, but I haven't listened to that one yet because I'm not really sure if that's just for writers, because she's a writer of TV shows, or not. So anyway, let's dive into our topic today, which is should I go big or should I stay small? You and I both were catching up today, and we realized that we've actually both had conversations with agents and realized that there is a ceiling and kind of a plateau that agents get to that they struggle with. And I think you had a great name for it a while ago. So why don't we get started kind of talking about that? Why don't you tell them what you discovered about where that place really is?
So I was talking to a friend, and he made a really great point. He said there is a big complication between being really, really small or I mean, really, really big versus just kind of staying small. And most of the time that's called the messy middle. And really, and really, in order to go really big, if that's what your plan is and your goal is, you have to be able to fight through the messy middle. And sometimes that can take years, honestly, depending on where you're at and the people that you have and all those things. And he and I were laughing because he said so many people think that the messy middle is not like a real thing, and he said, but it really is real. I'm like, yeah, it is.
Yeah, so true. And I wrote down something similar to that you have to be willing to master the people. That's the decision, the true decision that has to be made. And when we say stay small, what we mean is choose not to keep adding people and grow bigger. It's not that it's small production, because a lot of these people are doing really good production, but they're also at a place where they are not making the kind of money they necessarily want to make. And the only way to make more is to go bigger and add more people. And so I think the very first decision somebody has to make is, am I going to be willing to stick with the messy middle long enough until I do master the people? And mastering the people means you really have to, I mean, and think about it. It probably took you a long time to get your real estate business to that place. So what's the difference if it takes you a while to master the people? You know what I mean? It's so worth it, but I can understand where the pain of it. And I think what happens when it gets messy is it's hard to pinpoint where the issue is. Is it you in your leadership style? Is it you and your ability to pick the right people and put them in the right spots?
Yep.
Because as I've worked closely with people and I've asked them questions, usually when there's a lot of pain and they're deciding, I don't really want to go big, I can usually ask questions and figure out that they probably got some people in spots that are not performing at a good enough level to make their life easier. It's almost like they're making their life harder. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know, cause like, okay, I was thinking we've had them on our podcast before, but Dan and Jen, they have a really, really big business. They don't have that many people on their team. You know, they don't have a 40, 50 person team. So they've kept the number of people smaller, but they have a big business. And I think it's just interesting because I think a lot of it too comes down to systems. I mean, you have to have systems to have a really big business. Whether you have a lot of people or not, you still have to have the systems. But then I was also, when I was kind of talking through this with Troy, and then I was thinking it's kind of hard to have, speaking of the people, you were talking about people, it's kind of hard to be a big thinker and have small thinkers on your team. And you really can't ever go super big unless you have people who think as big as you think. Because if you're the one that's always thinking the biggest and you have smaller thinkers around you, then that's going to limit your ability from being able to push through to go big, especially for people who feel like they're stuck at the same. You know, like I talked to an agent last night and she said, well, I've been trying to grow this team for 3 years in a row now. And when we talked through it, I think that could have been a little bit of it too. I think she had some small thinkers around her. And so it was limiting her from being able to think bigger.
Yeah. And some of the things I've noticed also as they start to succeed through people is they don't have high standards. The high standards are going to tell you who's going to be willing to play on the team. The thing I noticed about Jen was her high standards for our agents and the people that she held accountable. So I think the couple things, one, high standards is one of them. Two, you know, they're not running on a proven model. In other words, a lot of them think that they're following the MREA, but when you really go back and look at it, there's a couple things on the MREA that people miss. Number one, your splits are not negotiable. You should never give a split. You should never give a better deal to someone. In other words, if you really listen to what Keller's taught for years, and I always go back to the way he has always taught, is even if you have a super talented person, and they've proven to you that they're super talented, you don't ever give them the better deal. What you do is you go give them an opportunity to go do the next deal with you for a bigger percentage. And I think what people do is they start to save people, or they can't imagine losing someone, they start giving them a better deal. So a couple things. The proven MREA model says it's not, you don't give a better deal to save someone or whatever. You look for a next opportunity with them. Maybe it's buying investment properties with them. Maybe it's going and starting an expansion team, but it's never more money or more split for that role. That role pays a certain split or a certain salary, and it doesn't pay more than that. So I think that's another place where people get off track a little bit, and it gets frustrating, and then they're in the messy middle and it doesn't feel good.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast. It's been a couple weeks ago. No, I don't even remember which one it was, honestly. But they asked the question, are you committed or are you interested? I can't remember if we already talked about this or not, but are you committed or are you interested? And I thought of that question whenever we talked about doing this topic, because it takes commitment to go really, really big. You can't just be interested in having a big team and in doing something really big like that. You have to be committed. And there's just a huge difference between being committed or being interested in something. And so I think sometimes you'll find, especially when you're talking to agents, they're interested in doing this big team and having this big business, but they really aren't super committed to do what it's going to take to be able to have that. And I just think there's such a big difference between those two. And so asking yourself that question, I mean, on specific things in my life, that helps me lately, just asking that question. I mean, are you committed or are you just interested in that? And when you really break it down, you sometimes you'd be surprised what your answer is, or which one of those sides of the coin you're on.
Yeah, absolutely. So flipping the gear a little bit and talking about the small side, a couple of things that I don't think agents think through when they decide that it's too hard, or I don't really want to go, much bigger, or maybe COVID is making some people kind of rethink, am I a little nervous to go bigger? Then there's a couple of things I would think that you would want to think through before you make that decision. Is it's extremely hard to save your way to wealth. And at the end of the day, every single one of us, no matter how big or small we're trying to build a business, our end game should be a business that funds our freedoms of wealth and of our time and of our relationships. And otherwise, all you have is a job. You can go get a job anywhere, but the truth is the business should provide enough extra money that you can build wealth. It should free up enough of your time that you get to not let the big important glass balls of your life drop. And it should launch you into better and greater relationships than you would otherwise have the opportunity to do. So a couple of cautions on the small side is it's hard to save your way to wealth. And there's not as much margin in the money to build wealth, and there's not as much margin to have a lot of freedom of your time if you choose to do that.
Yeah.
And what few people, let's say you do go small enough and you're still going to keep a few people, you have to master and get better at getting better quality people so that you can run the business on fewer people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree with all that. And I think it's funny because Troy said something today. I called up, we were talking and I said, hey, I'm going to ask you a question. Linda and I are doing a podcast tonight and I'd love to get your thoughts, because he's had a really, really big team and now he's choosing to kind of pare it back and go down to a little bit of a smaller team. And he said something that I thought was interesting. He said, sometimes when you're in this business, he said two things. He said, one, when you have people, I'm trying to think which one would be better to share first. Okay. One, he said, when you want a 10 on your team and they're a 5. And he said, there's nothing wrong with 5s. It's just that when they're a 5, a 5 is not going to go to a 10. And so when you're looking for 10s, it's really hard to find those people. And so he said, with that being said, sometimes Dana, sometimes I feel like it's easier to just deal with certain things yourself rather than leverage them. And I said, talk to me a little bit more about that. And he said, I don't know, like, I'm just thinking through some of my real estate stuff. And before we go through 3 other people on the team, it's easier for me to just pick up the phone and do it myself and call them. And I said, that's funny that you said that, because I think a lot of people would say that when they're thinking about having a smaller team. It's just easier for them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought there's got to be a lot of other people that think that, you know, I mean, I can remember thinking that before too. And then you get
and you know what, when I think about it, Dana, when I think about that the most, I've got the wrong people. I used to say I always would realize I had the wrong buyer agent when I would start to hand them a lead and then want to pull it back.
Yeah.
The minute I do that pull back of the lead, that is my first red flag that I've got the wrong person.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes that realization of the wrong people is such a burden on what now you have to do, that it's those moments when you want to say, do I even really want to do this, right? So I think we need to all understand that in building any business or doing anything worthwhile, you're going to have those moments that you doubt if this is the right decision. But again, think about why you started that in the first place and what's your end game. And if your end game is, because a couple of people that I've talked to, what I worry about when they say, you know, I just want to stay small, is the amount of money that they tell me that their business is making at that time is not enough to sustain them through life's challenges, life's unexpected, you know, and anything extra in life that you're going to want to do or that you could want to do. So that would be my thing, is there's no right or wrong decision. As long as you've gone out 10 years, 20 years and said, if I do it this way, what will I have at that, 15th or 20th year or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm realistic about that, because, you know, there's a great book out there called The Wealthy Barber for someone who is thinking about, you know, I don't really want to keep growing my business to super big. No right or wrong either way. And in there, it talks about, I think, a barber that actually wound up building wealth, because you can do it. It's just you have to be very purposeful about doing it.
Yep.
And so again, there's no right or wrong answer. I just think sometimes people are making those decisions without thinking them all the way through. And they're, like you said, they're making them while they're in the messy middle.
Yep.
So I would encourage you to talk through with anybody. Pick someone that you really feel like is knowledgeable, and talk through your decision and let them help you think through, what are the consequences of this decision 10 years from now, 15 years from now, or 20 years from now, if I choose to make it, and what would be the cons about it? Like, what's going to be the unexpected consequence that I'll get from either one, that I decide to do.
I think you said the best thing, which is one's not right, one's not wrong. At the same time, you have to really look far ahead. I mean, when you said look 5, 10, 20 years in the future, if you feel already great with where you are and you're not super worried about life's unexpecteds, which I don't know how anybody could not be worried about life's unexpecteds, because I feel like I worry about that all the time. But if then people are in different places at different times. So somebody could say, hey, 20 years from now, I'm good with keeping doing what I'm doing. But usually people are going to look and say, no, I don't have enough wealth to sustain that. And the margins are smaller, so I'm not going to be able to get there that way. And I think you just have to, when Troy and I were talking about this, I said, I feel like you have to have tough skin too, a little bit, because, he said there's so many opportunities in learning, and you get to it's like he's in a spot where he's kind of going to do it over again. And he said he feels like that was an opportunity because he's kind of going backwards to redo something. And I don't know, sometimes if you're in the messy middle and you feel like you have to start over, I don't necessarily feel like that's a bad thing. You can kind of start in your spot and be able to figure out, okay, am I committed to this? And then have the people around you that are committed towards those same things. Because he and I talked about something you and I've talked about a million times. One of the hardest things about leadership and going big is you want it more for everybody else than they want it for themselves sometimes. And that can be hard, honestly. That can be really hard.
Yeah, I think to me that's one of the hardest realizations, is when you realize that you do want it more, and now you're kind of stuck.
Yep.
Because now it's a lot harder to get out of that situation than it is to get in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I think it's just been interesting. We've been talking about this. So, with a couple different agents and not knowing it. So, I feel like there's so many people right now that are in all these weird spots around what are they doing with their business post COVID-19, and do they really want to make the commitment to go really big, or do they not? And so asking yourself these questions are so good.
Yeah. And, I think just saying, what are my options?
Yeah.
Being realistic about what my options are. Get a whiteboard or a flip chart and say, okay, what are my options? If I'm not happy with my situation, what are my options?
Yep.
Because I think sometimes we just stay in the muck of this isn't going, it's kind of like going around in a cul-de-sac over and over again. At least that's what I do when I'm kind of stuck on something. I'll probably drive everybody around me crazy talking about it. But usually it's because I'm not saying, okay, what's a logical way to think through what this is the best decision?
Yeah.
And again, it's always asking yourself, am I on the 5-yard line of building a big team, or am I on the 50?
Mm-hmm.
And are there moments that I really enjoy the freedom that it gives me, the leverage it gives me, the money it gives me, I think, don't make that decision in a moment of something bad has just really happened. I don't think that's ever a good time to make a decision either way.
Yeah.
But to think through logically when nothing bad is happening.
Yeah.
Because I think when something bad's happening, it's going to taint your view on do I even want to do this anyway?
Yeah. Well, you're being reactive instead of proactive. And I think you lose a lot of power when you're being reactive, which tends to happen.
Yeah, I would say we'll kind of wrap this up tonight. So let's kind of talk through it again. So, are you willing to master the people? Think about how long it's taking you to get your real estate production to where it is. Yeah. It's going to take you a while to master people, but mastering those people comes with a decision to be learning based about a process that will help you look at people deeper, think harder about whether they're a match for the role you're putting them in. And that is the painful thing to commit to, because it's a lot easier just to say, I caught myself recently thinking back when I just hired somebody, thinking, oh man, this person could be, they could be something that, takes over the world. And I'm already, the more time I spend, I'm thinking, maybe not the world, maybe a city, So you have to be careful, because on that front end, we're so excited about a person that we have rose-colored glasses on. So am I willing to take those rose-colored glasses off, learn a process that helps me really inspect the person I'm hiring and in the spot I'm putting them in?
Yep.
Am I willing to commit that time? Am I willing to not violate my model no matter who I ever put on my team? Meaning the splits are non-negotiable. Mm-hmm. The admin positions I build will be the strongest piece of my real estate business. And am I never willing to give up on the lead generation part? Because if I can keep those things in place in my business, I'll always have a business that it won't matter who comes and who goes from my team. It'll be a sustainable business. I think where it gets tough on people is when they give up those controls, or they've given away too much of the money. And when they look at what the bottom line is, there's nothing left.
Yeah, I actually talked to one of my friends, Stephanie, tonight, and she said she's had just a lot of change going on in her business and changing brokerages and doing a bunch of stuff. And she said, you know what I said, though, today is the last day that I'm gonna, what'd she say, dwell or something on it. She said, and tomorrow I'm waking up and I'm starting to do my lead gen. I said, good for you. She said, every time I get back into lead gen, I feel great about my business. And she said, so I said, tonight, you can moan and groan all you want until midnight. And when you go to bed, and then tomorrow morning when I wake up, I'm starting over and I'm getting back into my lead gen every single morning.
Oh, awesome. Give me her mailing address. I want to mail her one of Sid's books and my domino candy. I mean, my dice candy.
Oh, did you get that?
Yes, but I gotta order some more books and give them out to people, because otherwise I got a whole box of dice candy sitting at my house. But
oh yeah, she would love that. I'll send it to you.
To send her Sid's book and a bag of the dice candy.
That's a great idea. I love it.
Awesome. So then let's kind of recap on small a little bit. what's the ideal outcome 10, 15, 20 years from now, wealth wise? How much money will you be able to allocate to wealth building? And are you going to be happy with the leverage and the freedom of your time that you get if you do decide to stay small? What's your game plan if you do? And no right or wrong answer again, but what's the game plan?
Yeah, I think that's the most important one, because I'm not going to lie. There are some days, and we talked about this before, where I've woken up and said, I just want to forget this big life. I just want to have a small life. And you feel that way on certain days. And then when you walk yourself through and ask those questions, well, I've got a crazy dog bark. Come here, Frankie. Okay. When you walk yourself through and ask those questions, it takes you back to, okay, maybe I don't want to live a small life if I'm not going to be able to have the wealth to do the things that I want, for the rest of my life and for my family.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Wrapping it up, my final thoughts would be to ask yourself what's causing you to change your game plan. If you set out to go big and now you don't really want to do that, what's really causing you to change your game plan? Mm-hmm. And what would have to change for you to stick with the game plan that you originally set, whatever size that is?
Yeah, that's a great question. Mine would just be, are you committed or are you interested? And you need to really ask yourself that.
Awesome. That's great. All right. So remember, if you would like to come on our show as a guest and have Dana and I help you through any opportunities you may be looking at or challenges, be sure and reach out to us at info@everything life and real estate. And we would love it if you would give us a review down at the bottom of whatever platform that you like to listen to your podcast to. That really helps us get more people to listen to us. And then the greatest compliment you can give us is if you pass this on to a fellow friend in the real estate business that you think could benefit from listening to our podcast. And Dana, I hope you get a little bit of time to enjoy your vacation. And thank you for doing this podcast while you're on your vacation.
Oh, yeah. Man, we got another good one for next week. Guest speaker. So that'll be super exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Stay tuned. We have a great author of a great book called Never Split the Difference. And we will absolutely pick his brain and try to teach you everything we possibly can about negotiation. And his name is Chris Voss, and I'm super excited about that interview. So stay tuned for next week.
I cannot wait. I'm already getting my list of questions ready. We might go long on his.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep this one short and go long one on the next one.
Okay. See you next time.
All right. See you next time. Have a great vacation, Dana.
Okay. Thank you.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.